the agenda or the consent agenda items, including the meeting agenda, the December fund balance statement, minutes of the December 21st regular and January 2nd special open meetings, and payments of monthly bills, excluding payments to Cooper Lumber and Larry Benson. Does anyone make the motion? I will. Mr. Johnson makes the motion. Mr. Henry seconds. All those in favor? Carries 7-0. Need a motion to approve payments to Cooper Lumber and Larry Benson.
Read that motion.
Mr. Treadway makes the motion. Have a second?
I will.
Mark had his hand up. Second. Those in favor? Carries 5-0 with 2 abstentions, Fleetwood and Strong. This time, Dr. Barrow.
We're going to skip our recognition of our student board member because she's going to be here in a minute. She's singing the national anthem, so when she comes in, we'll jump to that, if that's okay.
Okay.
Communications, we have our MSBA monthly board report.
Welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of January. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with an update on appointments to the State Board of Education and the search for a new Commissioner of Education. On January 3rd, the first day of the legislative session, Governor Greitens withdrew and then reappointed the 5 members of the State Board of Education who voted in December to fire Dr. Margie Van Dieven as Commissioner of Education. Because the 5 were reappointed after the Missouri Senate convened for its 2018 session, the Senate now has until the end of the session in May, rather than only 30 days, to confirm those appointments. But in the meantime, those 5 cannot serve on the State Board, leaving the board without a quorum to conduct official business. Senators from both parties have expressed concerns about the appointment process used by Governor Greitens, and there appears to be significant opposition to confirming the 5 appointees to the State Board of Education. Right now, it's not clear when or if the Senate committee that deals with appointments will hold hearings on the confirmation of those appointees. Meanwhile, the 3 current members of the State Board of Education held a public hearing on January 8th to hear comments on the search for a new Commissioner of Education. One of those who testified was MSBA President Jan Meese, who said the Commissioner of Education must possess qualities that instill in others the desire to do their best for all kids and to set the course for public education in our state.
The qualities associated with the job posting outline a variety of skills. However, high-level leadership is not necessarily a checklist. The role of the Commissioner of Education demands more. It is not about a personal agenda. It is not about preconceived notions of public education. It is about open-mindedness. It is about establishing a collaborative environment within the department which trickles down to our school districts. It is about establishing a framework to ensure student success. It is about listening to all voices. It is about ethics, attitude, loyalty, and sound judgment. It's about being a champion for the public schools of Missouri that are committed to serving every child who comes to our doors. It is about recognizing the power and the potential of public education and delivering to the citizens of Missouri a product that will shape the future of our state and nation.
The application window for the Commissioner of Education position opened on December 15th and closed on January 8th. Only 10 individuals have applied for the job. State Board of Education President Charlie Shields said at the conclusion of the public hearing, the search process for a new commissioner cannot move forward until the State Board of Education has a quorum. The 2018 session of the Missouri General Assembly is underway, and numerous education issues will once again be on the agenda for lawmakers, not the least of which is state funding for K-12 education. It will take a $98 million increase in the foundation formula to fully fund the basic state aid program for schools. $48 million of that would go toward new early childhood education funding triggered by a fully funded formula. MSBA Associate Executive Director for Advocacy, Mike Reed, says the budget will be challenging once again this year.
Cameron, come on up.
I didn't want to walk in front of the video.
You're fine. So it's my pleasure to introduce Cameron Lee as our new student board member. Cameron will serve from now until December. Yes. And at some point, I'm going to ask you to do the rap you did for your campaign video here.
Deal.
So, Cameron and I didn't get to meet this week because obviously we're not in school. I usually meet the week of the board meeting with each student board member to kind of go over the agenda and let you know what's going on. And we'll come up with some projects that you can do on behalf of the students as we move forward. So, welcome. Appreciate you. You ran a great campaign. So, thank you. Okay, so as they mentioned in the video, Legislative Forum is February 13th. If you're interested in attending that, please let Mrs. Sterling or I know so we can get you registered for that. Our spring regional meeting would be April 26th. We don't know the location. It's usually in Hartville, but we'll let you know that as it comes, just to put on your calendar. Also, they mentioned Board of Education Recognition Weeks, January 21st through the 27th. We're going to take your picture in just a second, but I think this serves it best. You have some certificates that came from MSBA, but in that they wrote, school board service is often a thankless task, yet board members give countless hours to make critical decisions that benefit the public school students in our communities and throughout the state. To honor board members, MSBA has designated the week of January 21st through 27th, 2018 as School Board Recognition Week. The goal of this week is to build awareness and understanding of the important function an elected Board of Education plays in providing leadership for our public schools. Again, I'd like to thank you on behalf of teachers and staff in our school district and our community for the hours that you serve. You all take it very seriously. I know I have sent board packets out when I start getting phone calls with questions, and that's okay. That's why we send them out early, so you guys have time to look through them, but you do look through them, and I appreciate that. I've been in places where I'm pretty sure they didn't look at it before they showed up to the meeting, and then they had lots of questions. But again, I'd like to thank you for your service as well. Take your picture. I appreciate it. Mr. Dalton has got it in. Cameron, you gotta get up there with me. You're part of it. Well, you're a member.
You look great.
Better get in the middle.
Right here in the middle.
Okay, you guys are close. That works.
All right. You ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you.
So our next spotlight, we have several people here, several teachers here, but not everybody, I don't think. But as I read your name, if you would come up, I would appreciate it. And I hope I got them all. Mrs. Copeland, Mrs. Heinlein, Mrs. Stark, Mrs. McAllister, Mrs. Lee, Mrs. Tabor, Mrs. Gastineau, Mr. Davis, I know is not here because he just had twins, and Mrs. Wood. Did I get everybody? These teachers took it upon themselves to write a grant, Power Up grant through White River. I think each one of them received $500. I know the elementary is putting, I think everybody's putting them towards Chromebooks. Not everybody. Third grade is putting them towards Chromebooks in their classroom. But it's money that they get to spend in their classroom and on their kids. So writing grants is not easy, and it's not a fun task, but I just appreciate them taking the initiative because they're bettering the education in their classroom by writing those grants. Ladies, thank you for coming on a snowy day, and you've been out of school for 4 days. But we're going to be in school tomorrow.
All right, next we'll have the principal and director's reports, and we'll start with elementary principal Dr. Hall.
All right, so we haven't been in school this week, but we've still had people working hard in our building. Really appreciate Monty's staff, Stelma and Roger, Quinn, everybody. They were over checking rooms this morning, make sure our heaters were working and addressing those issues as they came up. They were shoveling snow off our sidewalks, so they've been hard at it even though kids and teachers have not been here.
Thank you. Next we'll have middle school principal Mrs. Swafford.
I wanted to brag about our paraprofessionals and our support staff. We have 5 paras in our middle school. They spend a lot of time helping our teachers and helping our students with different things, and I appreciate the 2 secretaries we have and also the custodians. They've done a great job this week. They've been a huge help.
Thank you. High school principal Dr. Nash.
This past week, we had a community planning meeting for our docudrama 2018. That is a mock car crash that we involve student actors and emergency personnel in the community, such as law enforcement, the ambulance, Cox paramedics, even the Cox helicopter will be landing to kind of show students what happens when a car crash occurs and all events that follow and the emotions that follow. And then afterwards we have a debriefing assembly in the APAC. And so I'd like to extend an invitation to the board members. That is going to be on March 29th in the afternoon.
Next, Special Services Director, Mrs. Swafford.
My middle school and high school teachers have been working really hard since semester with schedule changes. They have to go through every kid on their caseload, double checking IEPs and minutes and making sure they match and if they need to address that. And they've been working really hard to get all those out. And I've had several teachers, since we've been off this week, rescheduling meetings on their days off and trying to get those parents in. So they've worked really hard, even on snow days.
Thank you. Maintenance Director, Mr. Valentine.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks. Thank you, sir. Next, we'll go executive reports, Dr. Dial.
So we have a gentleman that lived here a long time ago. His name is Mr. Morchereau. He now lives in Merritt Island, Florida. And for many years, he's been giving money to the school district to offer scholarships for kids that are in need. His true belief is if we help them get there the first year to college or trade school, that they will stay. So he's been giving that out of his own pocket. Last July, he and Monica and I had a phone conference, and he wanted to set up a trust. This gentleman's 94 years old. So July 1st of last year, he deposited $600,000 into a trust fund for our students. And he has been investing in himself. As of December 31st, that trust fund had grown to $747,000. I need him to invest some money for me. So the school district, which is the benefactor, owns 2,400 shares of Boeing. From December 31st to yesterday, it made $37,000. Just in, as we've seen the stock market, it went over $24,000 yesterday. It's the highest it's ever been. But he has, again, he's 94 years old. So he knows that his end of life is not long. He's still he has his mind, he's doing well, but he set up this trust that I'm the president of, Monica is the secretary, and he's the treasurer. He's asked that I find somebody in this area that could take over the advising and the investments of the trust. So tomorrow afternoon, I'm meeting with Community Foundation of the Ozarks, a large community trust. I'm meeting with Jeremy Lofton, who is a graduate of here, that is a partner in Missouri Trust. And then our accounting firm, KPM, also does some trust advising. So I'm going to meet with those three and try to come up with a recommendation for Mr. Morchereau. At some point, just not today, but at some point he may want to turn that over. And I don't play the stock market. I hire a financial advisor, so I don't want to be responsible for investing that kind of money. But we're going to be able to give 15 $2,500 scholarships this year for our seniors. We just got a check last week for $37,506.34 that we're going to be able to give to this year's senior class. I just think that's outstanding. So, just wanted to highlight that. Board of Education sign-ups are closed. We have 4 people that have signed up to run in the April elections. Mr. Ellison, Mr. Johnson, Vernon Johnson, and we have Dan Johnson and Deanna Parsing. All 4 people have signed up at this point. Obviously, you heard a little bit on our MSBA report about our State Board of Education, and it is a fiasco in Jefferson City at this point. There are senators that are saying that they're going to block or filibuster any hearings. So I can't tell you what's going to happen. There is an article in the Kansas City Star and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch that they, through some depositions, because there is a lawsuit been filed from a teacher in Springfield through Dwayne Martin, who's an ed counsel. He owns Ed Counsel. It's an attorney, school attorney. Through depositions, they believe there's been a violation of the Sunshine Law on how they conducted their state board meetings. So I can't tell you where it's going to go at this point. I know we have 3 members of the board, of the state board, and it takes 5 to pass anything at the state level because they have 8 board members. So it is a fiasco in Jefferson City. I was scheduled to go to the January board meeting. Since they didn't have it, I didn't go. So I'll keep you updated as I know more. State revenue, I don't have a revenue update because we won't get that payment till tomorrow for you to look at, so I'll catch you up for June and at least June and February. But as the MSBA said, it's going to take $98 million to fully fund. The chief operating officer out of the governor's office sent to his directors in the state, so the director of all the departments, that they needed to cut $300 million out of the state budget. So it's going to take $98 million to fully fund the formula, but they need to cut $300 million, plus you listen to state tax cuts coming in. So I can't tell you what next year is going to hold at this point. I usually start doing revenue projections at this point. I'm a little scared to try to do that at this point. I do think we're going to hold this year. We're going to hold strong. We're going to, we're at 62.25. I still think we'll get to 62.40. We've estimated enrollment. We'll see a lump sum catch up, and our payment will be very large tomorrow. I still believe we're going to net that 200,000, and I'm going to be pretty aggressive with that at this point to try to draw down every dollar we can draw down this year. Even if we overestimate it a little bit, and we have to pay back $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, it's better to get every dime that we can get this year, because I don't know what July 1 is going to move forward with. So that's really my revenue update. Again, there'll be more to come as we go through the spring. Not a lot has happened. I get, every time there's a bill filed, there's a fiscal note attached to it that they send out to organizations that it's going to affect. I'm one of about 50 superintendents in the state that gets those fiscal notes, and I am well over 100 fiscal notes already received. So that means there's been over 100 bills filed in regard to education at this point. And we are in the 3rd week of January. So they started rolling in middle of December. Somehow they got Mr. Dalton's name on it and not mine at first, and he started getting all these emails, and he came to my office fairly quickly and said, hey, this is not my bailiwick, this is your problem. So we got that changed, and I get all of those things. But the good thing about that is they're interesting to read. There's some of the craziest stuff that gets filed up there about it's crazy. So anyway, we did have several members of our administrative team, and I'll let Mr. Dalton talk about that, where they went today. Got some good training, but that is all I have to share with you at this point.
All right, thank you. Mr. Dalton.
Kind of touch on what he was talking about today. Myself, Mrs. Nash, Mrs. Berkdahl, Mrs. Swaddish, and Mrs. Melton went to Columbia early this morning. and setting on the training. There's some legislation as far as policies that schools will need to have in place regarding training of staff for suicide prevention. You wish that wasn't something we had to talk about, but it is. Lots of districts there. I think this was their third meeting. Mrs. Nash, correct me if I'm wrong, I think 55 districts I think have participated at this point. You know, and the benefit of that, you got a lot of people to visit with, bounce ideas off of, you know, see what things are, you know, work, fit in their district. Just a lot of resources there. Shared a lot of good information with us as far as handling, you know, situations, you know, checklists, just to work through situations like that might arise. There'll be a lot more information coming down on training, identifying situations that might need to be addressed. So just a lot of training that all our teachers will be going through moving forward. So we had a group do that today. The other thing I was going to touch on, our winter PD days coming up February 5th. Kind of ties in with some things that will be touched on here later with some of our other reports. But that morning, we're going to have some in-depth sessions that the teachers have an opportunity to go to. One will be on some dyslexia training, which is part of some legislation, again, that's going to be in place for schools for next school year. This is a follow-up to some training we had done in our summer PD day and sessions that we've had teachers going throughout this semester. And I know we have several lined up for some days this current semester also. So some in-depth training that morning for dyslexia. We also are going to be able to offer a couple different sessions on technology. What we're hoping to do is to appeal to folks, boy, just learning the basics, and then maybe some folks that are more comfortable, offer some sessions for them also. I think that kind of ties in some things Mr. Doan will talk about. Got a lot of feedback from staff. You know, I know for the last several years we've taken advantage of some of our early out days to do some technology type trainings. And kind of the feedback we're getting, you know, in that 45-minute time frame, boy, it's just enough time to see a resource and just get started. So getting a lot of feedback as far as having more time to just go more in depth and actually start, whether it's designing a lesson or doing some more, you know, just exploring what's available to see what teachers might be able to use in the classroom. So we've got some longer sessions, going to try to meet that need that way. That'll be available that morning. And then that afternoon, we're going to try something I don't know that anyone maybe other than, have you been a part of an ed camp? I think for the rest of us will be something new. Kind of looking forward to it. But you do these PD days, a lot of times the hardest thing is to find something that appeals to everybody. You know, you've got 100 plus teachers there, a lot of different interests, you know, things they want to see. So Ed Camp offers us an opportunity based on feedback from teachers. We've got a list of ideas. They're going to be able to present ideas that day, and then we'll have breakout sessions. We'll just hopefully we'll answer lots of different questions, have lots of good discussion. Just get teachers sharing ideas that they're using in their own classrooms. We've got a lot of experts here in our own buildings. We're going to try to give them an opportunity and facilitate a chance for them to share those ideas and ask those questions of one another.
It's kind of, hey, I want to talk about this. I write this topic up. I'm going to this room, and 5 people that want to join me, they come. And we said it's not me presenting to them. We share ideas. And it's people, you know, Sarah doesn't interact with people at the high school, but they may want to talk about one subject. She's a preschool teacher, but she may be able to learn something from the high school. And I guarantee they can learn something from a preschool teacher. So it's unorganized and it's chaotic, so it makes people like Mr. Dalton and I very nervous, but it's really good for teachers. So we're excited about trying it.
Looking forward to it.
So,
Thank you. Next, we'll go into this discussion and action items, and we'll start with designated school contacts.
so we do this every January. It's just we designate who the contact is for certain programs that we have that are federally mandated. So our homeless coordinator is our special education director. Our migrant coordinator is our special education director. Our English as second language is our special education director. Our special education is our special education director. Our safety director is our maintenance director and myself. Title I is our assistant superintendent. Our 504 coordinator is our special education director. Our Title IX coordinator is athletic director, and our foster care is our special education director. Anybody need any definition of what those are? Because those are a lot of education speak items. We just need to designate those contacts.
So we need a motion, vote needed to approve the designated school contacts. Have a motion? Mr. Henry makes a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Fleetwood seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Carry 7-0. Next, we'll have a community involvement review. Mrs. Swafford.
Hello. I'll just kind of hit some of the highlights. We had sent out, Mr. Dalton sent a survey out for me to parents. At the time that I did the report, I had 49 parents respond, which I felt was a pretty good number. Reached out to building principals and counselors, preschool department, and some of the things that are new this year, the docudrama, the Think First Assembly with freshmen, career internship class, the career internship committee, and a community meeting, freshman orientation, FAFSA night, which is financial aid for the students, 5th and 8th grade orientation. A lot of the strengths in this came from the responses on the survey. I know preschool, they offer a family activity each month to promote connection between home and school, and I know that's very important. Bears Den was mentioned multiple times as a strength. Just opportunities that we provide for the kids to be active in the community, going to the nursing home, Ava Place, things like that. That was mentioned multiple times. Care to Learn, that was mentioned as well. So I think those are very positive. That speaks very highly for our school. Some recommendations for changes. Just always be flexible, and I think we do a great job. That was mentioned as well. Just try to be flexible to meet every parent's need. Communication about events, make that, whether that comes through text messages, Facebook, whatever, social media, so that was important. Programs for single parents, that was mentioned. More career day opportunities for students from preschool on up. I think it's important too to start encouraging kids to start thinking about transitioning. Driver's education class was mentioned more than one time. And opportunities to see what kids can accomplish, for parents to see their kids' artwork in the community, or opportunities for parents to come in and see their kids. So those are some of the highlights.
Thank you. Thank you. So we need a motion, vote needed for the community involvement review. Mr. Strong makes the motion. Mr. Johnson seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Carries 7-0. Next, we'll have a technology program review.
Mr. Down.
Okay. As everybody on the board knows, we added roughly 270 Chromebooks this year, which, if I go with my strengths and concerns, the teachers were all very appreciative of. They use them in the classroom daily. It seems to be bringing out more interest in the kids in the class. They're doing more, they're becoming more active. We added 40 to the high school over the Christmas break. We ordered them and then distributed them out the week right after we come back. Did an afternoon session for 45 minutes with teachers, gave them a brief how-to on it, which most of them are sharp enough to know how to use Chromebook anyway. Put it in their hands so that this summer, if everything goes well, we can go one-to-one with the high school students. That way these teachers have an idea of what's going on in the classroom with the students using the same device. If we go on into my strengths and concerns, Mr. Dalton and I did a survey, and the teachers, we had 110 of the teachers, I think, answered, which was a fabulous response in my opinion. All of them seem to have been going, we need to go more one-to-one. We need to have more technology with the students. The students are going this way in the future because that's the way society's going. Biggest concerns they all seem to have is the fact that we're not one-to-one. We don't have funding for it, and the fact that I'm the only guy here running back and forth about 8 to 10 miles a day. as I make my trips. So, and that's probably my biggest concern right now is now that we're adding all these more devices, I've got 2 or 3 high school students that I've got helping me, which are good at swapping a keyboard out or swapping a monitor out or even a screen. I've got them tearing apart stuff and doing screens now, but I can't get them too much more in depth than that.
So as we go through staffing recommendations in the spring, Mr. Dalton and I have, we've been discussing this since the fall. So we have plans to add an additional staff member, whether that will be an additional FTE or it'll just be a reassignment of somebody. We're working those issues out to give some help to Mr. Doan and how we split that up. We'll visit with those 2 people. And, because we do, we have J Mark who helps with the servers and the switches, but as far as feet on the ground, it's Mr. Doan and a couple kids. As we go to one-to-one in the high school, Mrs. Nash and I have talked about expanding that. Maybe we have a repair shop. We create a repair shop, and as we go one-to-one, we won't need as much computer lab space at the high school, so we'll have some space to put a repair shop and some internship possibilities for kids that they can, because kids can actually fix almost anything on a Chromebook. They can fix keyboards, they can fix screens, they can get them ready to send out.
And it takes me 30 minutes to show them how to do it the first time, and then I've got Drew Adams has been doing it for me this year, and I think he's replaced 28 screens this year so far.
So we do have plans to give Mr. Doan some help. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we need a motion to approve the technology program review. Do you have a motion? Michael makes the motion. Mr. Treadway seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Carries 7-0. Next, Alexis.
Mrs. Henry.
May I just sit?
You can talk. I get to talk first though.
Okay.
So, Mrs. Henry, a week and a half ago, I think got hold of me and asked if she could present a topic to the board. I think it's dear to her heart. I talked about Mrs. Henry last October. The first day I was here, first board meeting, she was in attendance at. And, probably a mentor for me, more of a mentor for me than I was a boss for her when I got here. So gladly accepted that request and we'll hear from Mrs. Packard.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I think as I look at my life, there's a lot of things I didn't know about until it became personal. For example, I didn't know anything about diabetes until my oldest daughter developed insulin-dependent diabetes. And I didn't know anything about basketball, and really I still don't know too much about basketball, but until my kids started playing basketball. And in the same vein, I didn't know anything about dyslexia, or too much. It wasn't taught when I was in college, and it certainly didn't come with any information about what to do about it. But I didn't know anything about it until one of my grandkids was diagnosed as having dyslexia. So I set about to try and determine what all was involved in that. A definition of dyslexia is a learning disability that is neurobiological in origin and characterized by difficulties with accurate word recognition and/or fluent word recognition, and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. It can include reading and non-reading symptoms. In other words, it could also be math as well. And the difficulties that a student has, it's important for us to understand, it is not representative of their general intelligence level or their general intelligence ability. It's also important to understand that quite often dyslexia will be found in other members of the family. It's probably genetic in origin. It's estimated that about 40 million Americans, adults and children in the United States have dyslexia. It's also estimated that about 20% of every school setting of all children that they suffer from dyslexia. And in a classroom setting, that child is probably doing one of a couple of things. Sitting there trying to be hidden. Please don't call on me. Or that's the child that's misbehaving, is acting out as a bully, or even maybe is being bullied. And so those, and there's other things obviously too. But there are things that can be done. And when a child is given hope and the skills to deal with it, they can become very successful. And I kind of put together a list of some names of people that you might recognize as being successful that have had dyslexia. Steven Spielberg is one. A man named Richard Branson, who owns about 150 different companies. There's an 8-year-old boy named Max Ash who developed, and it sounds really ridiculous, but he developed a cup that has a hoop on one side so that he could throw his marshmallow into that hoop for hot chocolate. And he sold $1 million worth of that product. The founder of Kikos was dyslexic. The founder of JetBlue has some other names: Tommy Hilfiger, Henry Winkler, Robin Williams, Jay Leno is another person, Aaron Brockovich, you might remember that name, Magic Johnson, and the last one is Steve Jobs. So again, when they learn to compensate, or they're given the skills to compensate, kids can become very, very successful. Now, I know that the board has no doubt, Mr. Dalton just mentioned it, the legislation is going to require all schools to screen kindergarten through 2nd grade. And they passed that a year or so ago, I'm not certain just when. And it's to go into effect, I think, this fall.
Correct.
We don't know too much about that. We don't know what the screening tool, if that's going to be a required screening tool, if we can come up with our own. We don't know if the state's going to provide money for that. I'm going to guess not. And we don't know what is it we're supposed to do after they're screened. And if we're screening just K through 2nd grade, what about 3rd through everyone else? Because there's, again, 20% of those kids are suffering from dyslexia as well, and so we need to be doing some things. So a regular reading program does not provide the skills that kids need. It probably needs to be phonetic in origin. It needs to be very clear, very guided, needs to be multisensory. And so I think we need to be looking at some alternatives to do that. One of those things that I think would be very helpful is a program called the Barton System. And it's a very cost-effective system. We can get a site license for the whole school that would cost about $9,500. And there's more expensive programs, but this one has actually been very effective and is in that way. I think we could also, John was talking about technology. There are a great many technology devices that would read to kids, do an audio reader while they're reading the book too, and that's been very helpful. And there's the Yale Center has got a list of assisted technological devices that would be very good for our school to have. Now I'm going to guess Dr. Dial sitting here, maybe the rest of you thinking that's all great, Pat. How are we going to pay for that? And I've got a suggestion for that too, to see that I would. Title I money can be used for just such things. And so my recommendation is actually going to be, if we haven't used Title I money, all of it this year, let's go ahead and get that Barton system and start on that right away. And then let's start looking at what other things that we could do. I also would like to suggest that maybe we need a committee of teachers, administrators, maybe some parents that could do some research and look at some of the things that might be helpful for kids, and maybe even put together a packet to give to parents as kids are diagnosed with dyslexia. So that would be the key thing that I would say. I would like to see AVA become the school in the state that everybody else comes to and say, gosh, your kids have jumped 4 or 5 grade levels in reading. What are y'all doing? And then let's be able to tell them. And I know it's easy sometimes for us to say, especially educators, for us to think, well, we can't save everyone. But the truth is we've got to try to save everyone. And all of our kids deserve to have the best education possible so that they can be successful adults. And I think all of you would agree with that. And I think everybody in this room would put education as the very first priority, the most important priority that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure you'd volunteer.
To be on the committee? Well, you know I would.
Albert Einstein had this discussion. It was
Yeah.
too early, they couldn't tell.
They couldn't test that. There's a whole lot of people that way. It's very often a field of art
Yeah.
and architecture, doctors, they've been very successful there.
Thank you. Mr. Dalton?
Well, she
Take
hit on-
notes.
Yeah, I did. Hit on a lot of things, Barton system's one we're looking at.
Good.
We are, it's been, and you said it, you know, even when I was going through, it wasn't something we talked about. We going through some of the list of accommodations, recommendations, just kind of like you said. So hey, here's some screening tools. We're going through that. Some are things we have, some are things we're going to need to get. Now what do you do? And it's been interesting to look through some of the recommendations. Boy, some are things that I see teachers using every day, which is awesome. You know, I know as we've visited with principals, and I know Dr. Hall and I were visiting, talking to a teacher, hey, you don't have to wait for a diagnosis. You don't have to wait. If it's helping a kid, like you said, you got to try to help them all. You got to try to save them all, but try to meet those needs.
One of the things that I've talked with Mrs. Swaby about, one of the things that we have available already is the first level of the Barton system. And you asked if I volunteer. I volunteered to go through the training, which is really pretty simple and straightforward, to work with kids and kids after school. And I'd be happy to work with some of the retired teachers. I think would be real open to do that, to do a one-on-one thing, because our teachers, willing certainly, but there are so many demands placed on their time that they don't have that opportunity to work one-on-one.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
Last thing on the action items is to set the reorganization meeting. And
The recommendation would be April 17th, which meets the statutory guidelines of 14 days after the election. So that's a Tuesday. That would replace our regular April meeting. We would meet at 6:15. We'd still have executive session prior, but we would meet at 6:15 to do our reorganization.
Okay, so we need a motion to set the reorganization meeting for April 17th at 6:15 p.m.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Strong makes a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Fleetwood seconds. All those in favor? Carries 7-0. Our next regular board meeting will be February the 15th, 2018 at 6:30 here in this room. So we need a motion to adjourn. Can you make some motion? Do I have a second? Mr. Johnson seconds. All those in favor? Carries 7-0. Thank you.